Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It's so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? I am doing good, super hyped, super excited to be back with you guys. You all know how much I love doing these chats. They're like my favorite part of the week, the things I love doing and enjoy the absolute most. So it's great to be back, everyone, and it's great to see you. And boy, we actually have some really big topics we can talk about today. One in particular, we've all been waiting for what seems like forever for a Starfield release date. Ever since we found out this thing was delayed, we've been waiting. When's it going to come? When's it going to come? When are we going to get this game? And unfortunately for Microsoft, it did slip out of the window that they originally quote promised it would be at E3. That's right. This game is now coming on September 6th, 2023. So it's still this year. Good news is it did not get delayed out of this year, because I know there were some people even a bit worried about that. But that has not happened. September 6th, 2023. And then we found out when the Starfield Direct is going to be, and that is going to be on June 11th. Now, we actually got a double confirmation from this thanks to the Xbox account. They tweeted out that not only will the Starfield Direct be on not only will the Starfield Direct be on June 11th, but so will the Xbox Showcase. So the Starfield Direct is going to take place directly after the main show, right? They're going to do their big Xbox Showcase, and then after that, they're going to do the Starfield Direct. So we got a double confirmation there on that, and there's a whole bunch of discussion about it. Is this a good release date? Is it bad? Should Microsoft be ashamed that they did not meet their promised window? Is the game in trouble? Etc., etc. There's a tweet that I wrote that's blowing up about Starfield versus Spider-Man 2 and so much. So I'm sure there's going to be a ton of discussion today about Starfield. So that's one big topic we can talk about. Another major topic for the industry right now is that PlayStation 5 sales are surging. That's right, they are blowing up. Not only is PlayStation 5 increasing, like, hey, this thing's doing pretty well, it's absolutely exploding worldwide. So we've gotten a couple huge metrics for February so far. The UK, we have found out that PlayStation 5 sales were up 316% compared to last year. Huge growth. Europe, we found out sales were up 400% compared to February last year. Massive growth. And Japan, it is up 457% compared to February last year. Again, massive growth. PlayStation 5 is just absolutely surging worldwide right now. This is really good news for the industry, because we want to get that current gen install base as high as possible before these current gen only games start hitting, which, by the way, you guys know this because you can see the games on the calendar. 2023 is the year where this starts really kicking off, where we really start getting a lot of current gen only games. There's still going to be some big cross gen games, right? It's not that cross gen is completely dead, but we have Jedi Survivor right around the corner. Hogwarts Legacy, I know, is cross-gen, but it's current-gen only for now, for several months, actually. Jedi Survivor's current-gen only completely. Spider-Man 2's current-gen only. Starfield's current-gen only. So it's very important that these next-gen consoles really start putting some high sales out there. And PlayStation 5's exploding. So good news for Sony and good news for the industry. We can talk about that if you guys want to. The Last of Us keeps doing crazy ratings on HBO Max. This show is still growing, which is crazy, because a lot of shows grow for like 1, maybe 2 episodes, best case scenario even 3 episodes, but to be honest, that's very rare. And then usually they like slow down or even dip all the way until the finale, and then you'll get another bump. But it's pretty abnormal that a show just keeps going and growing and growing, and that's the case for The Last of Us. We found out that the most recent episode, episode 8, has a new record high viewership of 8.1 million viewers on Sunday night. And to be clear, that's the US only. That is not globally. There's 8.1 million people in the US watching this on Sunday night. They now have said that in the US alone, again, this thing is averaging around 30 million viewers per episode. It's just a juggernaut hit. This is actually now in Game of Thrones territory for total viewership. No joke. Not as high as like the absolute peaks of Game of Thrones, but 30 million average viewers per episode. This puts it into literal Game of Thrones territory for how that was performing, and we know how massive of a hit Game of Thrones was. So just gigantic gigantic viewership for The Last of Us. We can talk about that if you guys want, or anything else. So if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you. Your comments, your questions, you just drop them down into chat, and we talk about the latest news in the video game industry. There's going to be two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want, it pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. The way to guarantee your question is going to be the super chat option. You type a donation of whatever you want, it alerts me, and I get to super chats immediately. As always, don't feel pressured or obligated to donate in super chat. It's just a way to help support me and the channel and guarantee that I get to your question. I can pretty much never get to all of the free questions because you guys ask so many amazing ones. So if you want to make sure that I get to your question, super chat is going to be the best method for you. All right, everyone, just one housekeeping note off the top before I get to your comments and questions. I just want to say, again, thank you for the viewership increase lately, guys. The last chat now is almost at 2,000 views, which, again, I know for most big YouTubers, 2,000 views is nothing. But for me, that's great, right? It's approaching 2K now on the last chat, and I had talked about how, for 4 weeks in a row, we were over 1,000. This is the highest consistent viewership this channel's ever gotten since the day I made it. So thanks, guys, for doing that. I really appreciate it. It's great seeing the chat grow. I don't know if this will keep going for months and we'll just keep growing here, but I really appreciate it because my YouTube is way smaller than my Twitter. So I very much appreciate you guys showing up to the chats. For everyone that's coming back and watching these chats later, I appreciate it. And it's great to see. So thanks so much, guys. All right, let's get rocking into your comments and questions. Split-End89 kicking us off here with the first super chat. Thank you so much, buddy. You know you don't have to do that. Split-End is a great friend of mine, helps mod the channel, does amazing work over at Gaming Trend, including writing reviews and all sorts of stuff. So you can always check out what Split-End is up to over at Gaming Trend. Great outlet over there, and he's doing awesome work. And he has a super chat here saying, thoughts looking back on the Xbox 2022 show. Okay, so here's the thing. This is the first thing that really stands out to me because there's a lot of discussion around this whole, Starfield's now not in the 12-month window. I understand why Microsoft went that route, right? They wanted to show last year, I think, to really be like, hey, look at all the stuff you're going to get with Xbox Game Pass over the next year. That's really what it was about, right? Because they showed a bunch of stuff. They showed Starfield, they showed Redfall, they showed Forza, Minecraft Legends, all of these other games. But we now know from that show, both Forza and Starfield, two really, I would say those were honestly the two strongest showings from them last year. Redfall looks great, Minecraft Legends looks great, but I think that most people would agree that Forza and Starfield were the two most wow factor games from E3 last year, and both of them got delayed past when Microsoft would say. So my main thought on this moving forward, I don't think Microsoft should pursue this, we'll guarantee you're going to play these games over the next 12 months thing. And I kind of said that from the beginning. I've kind of always said I really enjoyed that Xbox showcase last year. I actually thought it was a very strong presentation from them, but I was always a little uncomfortable with them being like, this is just the next year focus, because a couple reasons. First of all, I actually don't think strategically that's the best idea. Sometimes announcing projects far out, while it might be annoying to some gamers, is a very big boon for business. A prime example of this, guys, is Final Fantasy VII Remake. That game was announced super early for PlayStation 4, and I can tell you it sold a lot of consoles for PlayStation 4, not just at launch, right? We're talking over the years as people anticipated that game. That announcement got a lot of people excited about PlayStation. You could say the same thing for The Last of Us Part 2. That was announced, I think several years. I think it was 2 years before that game came out. And again, that thing drove crazy hype, crazy excitement for years. So I've always never, to be perfectly honest with you, been a big fan of this idea that we're only going to show you games over the next 12 months. Because I think while it sounds cool in theory, I think just getting people excited for the future of a platform in general is good. If that game's 2 years away, then who cares? If you think it's ready to show and announce, then show and announce it. The other reason why I didn't love the whole, this is only the 12 months, and we're they used pretty strong wording during that showcase about the 12 months. The other reason I wasn't the hugest fan is because, dude, games get delayed all the time now. So, coming out there and making a definitive statement like that, how often do we see games delayed? I mean, we see games delayed. Put it this way, it's almost of a more rare occurrence now that a game gets announced and gets no delays than games getting delayed. Like, seriously, most games nowadays, when it gets announced, it's a bummer to say, but most of the time it's one of those things like, okay, that's cool, but this isn't the real release date. Now we'll wait for the inevitable delay, and then we'll see where the real release date is. So I also don't love it for that reason, because if you're telling these people that this is the next 12 months, let's just be honest. The odds are not all this is going to make the next 12 months. That's for any platform holder. This isn't an Xbox thing. If PlayStation came out with a showcase and they said, you're getting these games in the next 12 months, I would say, guys, I'd be a little cautious. You're probably not getting all these in the next 12 months. Nintendo, same thing. I would say Nintendo delays definitely less than PlayStation and Xbox, but if they were coming out here and guaranteeing stuff a year before release, which Nintendo usually doesn't do, right? They usually wait till closer. But if they came out, even Nintendo, and they're like, this is the next 12 months, probably not all of it's going to be. Games just get delayed a lot. They're huge projects. So, I really liked that showcase. I would advise them to not do that moving forward, though, personally. Personally, I would say, maybe say that, like, these are the games that are coming soon. Like, you could kind of go that route, if they still don't want to show a ton of stuff that's 2-3 years off, just use the coming soon wording. Don't come out here and just flat out say 12 months, because you're going to disappoint people when you delay stuff. It's inevitable nowadays that stuff gets delayed. So it's a bit of a bummer, but at least it's still this year. All right. Thank you so much, buddy, for that super chat. I really appreciate it. Let's start rocking into your free questions here. Zinfamous. Great to see you, Zinfamous. Hey, Benji, with Starfield set for September and Forza still undated, do you still think Hellblade 2 could release this year? Also, thoughts on UFC 285 last Saturday. What a crazy night of fights. So, for the first part, Hellblade 2 is interesting. Because Starfield getting delayed, I sort of hinted at this at the last chat. And of course, it's always like a lame thing to be the guy that comes out afterwards and been like, see, I told you, especially whenever I didn't tell you that. I specifically held off because I'm not a huge leaker here, but I had heard from a pretty reliable source recently that there was a good chance that Starfield was getting delayed. And, I'm not surprised by it. I will say it's a little bit later than I thought. I thought that whenever I was hearing this had a good chance of getting a delay, that it was going to be for like July or August. September is a little bit later than I thought. So that does make Hellblade 2 a little more questionable. There are rumors floating around that Hellblade 2 is targeting this year. We'll see. Again, I have no confirmation that Hellblade 2 is this year. That's just one of the rumors that's floating around now. I would say I still think it's possible because it's very early September for Starfield. That's September 6th. If Hellblade 2 is ready to go, they could put it in November. That would still get it into candidacy for like award season, because I think Hellblade 2 is a game that Microsoft wants to make an awards play on. The original Hellblade got a bunch of awards, and this is going to have an even bigger budget and more time behind it. So I think Microsoft probably feels, hey, this is our kind of game that might get some nominations. If they put it in early November, it's still close enough that they could get nominations at like the Game Awards and stuff. So I would say Zinfamous, there is still a chance. I mean, obviously, if Starfield was like late October or November, I would say it's done. Like, clearly, they're not going to launch Hellblade that close to Starfield. But let's say it's November 6th, right? That's 2 months. I mean, that's enough gap from Starfield that Hellblade would be fine. You just wouldn't want to launch Hellblade within, I would say, 1 month. But if they have a 2-month gap there, they could still put Hellblade this year. It's not a lock. Starfield coming in a bit later than I thought, I would say makes Hellblade a little more questionable, but it's not so close that it's like over. They definitely still have enough time between those games that they could launch them both if they want to. Now, in regards to 285, I'll make this quick for the non-MMA fans. It was a great card. Really strong pay-per-view. UFC has had some like fight nights recently that aren't great. But they've, I would say, been doing a good job on the pay-per-views. The fight nights, they're hit or miss. There have been some very good fight nights. I would say the fight nights that are like in cities have been really good, but the fight nights they're doing at the Apex are like, pretty low quality, to be honest. I still watch them all because I'm a fighting fanatic, but the quality of the fights hasn't been there. 285 was a great pay-per-view. John Jones is the GOAT. For me, it's always been a question, is it George St. Pierre or John Jones? Those are the two best MMA fighters in history to me. And I don't think it's actually that close. Some people are going to put guys like Fedor in there. Some people are going to put guys like Khabib in there. To me, it's like, or Anderson Silva, love Anderson. But to me, it's like, it's John Jones, GSP, and honestly a pretty significant gap. And I love Anderson and I love Mighty Mouse. Those would be my 3 and 4. But to me, it's clearly John Jones and George St. Pierre is the best. I think John kind of cinched it. Like, I think he kind of just put his foot down and said, I am the best MMA fighter of all time with that performance. The way he just freight trained Gon in like minutes made it look easy and like child's play. And the first time he ever fought at heavyweight, shocking performance. So to me, Jones he sealed it. He is the GOAT. Shocking to see Valentina Shevchenko lose. I would have never thought that. I thought Erin Blanchfield had a very good chance of beating Shevchenko. Now I think it's a lock. If they match up Shevchenko and Erin Blanchfield at any point, Erin Blanchfield will beat her. I did not expect Alexa Grasso to beat her though. Shout out to Mexico. They have 3 UFC champions right now, which is like crazy, absolutely insane. They got Yair Rodriguez, Brandon Moreno, and Alexa Grasso. That's incredible. So great card, great pay-per-view. I'll get back to your guys' video game questions. All right, Logan Hardy here. Hi, Benji. Hope you're doing well. How much bigger would Spidey 2 be over Ragnarok? Also predict who will have the bigger mind share and market share between Spidey 2 and Starfield. Okay, so this has become a hot button discussion. I should have seen it coming, but I actually didn't think about it whenever I sent the tweet. It sprouted off the console wars, which are kind of always inevitable on Twitter. But I had written on Twitter, I was like, there's like an actual chance. Now, it's not a lock at all, but there's a chance that Starfield and Spider-Man 2 could go directly head-to-head in the same month now. And the reason I wrote that is because Spider-Man 2 is currently scheduled for fall. We know that September was the release date of the original Spider-Man game from Insomniac. That launched in 2018, and it did huge numbers, so clearly September is a good release slate for that game. And then the other thing is that, fall actually does start in September. Now, it's later in the month. It's September 22nd, but that still does put it in that fall window. So I was like, to me, it was more just an interesting thing. Like, it'll be crazy if we get these two games right next to each other. And I sent out a tweet, and I was like, they could go directly head-to-head. Like that, there's a chance. I don't predict this, but there is a chance these two games could literally launch in the same month. Now, right now, I lean towards Spidey's going to be October or November. I just think that, September would be very early fall. So, anytime you're given a window, it's best to think somewhere in the middle or the end for a game than like right in the beginning of that window. So, but it could happen. They could do September. Right now, I lean towards more October or November for that game, but it could absolutely happen. Now, how much bigger will it be than Ragnarok? I think it will be, and this has become a hot button discussion because some people are like, it's important to note, Ragnarok had PlayStation 4, whereas Spider-Man's not. However, I think PlayStation 5 install base is going to be plenty high enough by the time we get to Spidey that it won't matter. I mean, guys, the PlayStation 5 is exploding right now in sales, and it has literally, let's say this game is October or November, it still has most of the year to increase that install base. We still have all of March, April, May, June, July, August, September, maybe October. We still have like 7-8 months of install base to grow here. It's going to have millions and millions of more console install base by then. So I'm not that worried about the install base impacting it at launch, if I'm going to be honest with you. It'd be one thing if PS5 was at like 15 million units, but guys, it's going to be high, like pretty darn high by the time this thing hits. And I think that it will have an amazing attach rate for a PlayStation exclusive. PlayStation exclusives don't get as close as like Nintendo gets, but I still think by PlayStation standards, it'll have an amazing attach rate. So I do think it will actually launch bigger than Ragnarok. Now, it'll be interesting to see if it legs over the next few months the way Ragnarok did, because Ragnarok had that explosive launch and then had incredible legs if you look at it for a PlayStation game. So I think Spidey will, because Spider-Man's just such a big brand. But that'll be a more interesting thing to watch is the legs, just because Ragnaroks were so good. But I do think launch will be bigger. I wouldn't expect something crazy like it's going to double. Like it's going to double Ragnarok's launch. Keep in mind, guys, Ragnarok sold a freaking ton at launch, the biggest PlayStation exclusive launch ever. So I don't think it's going to like just completely annihilate it. That is a very high bar. But I do expect it to be higher. Yeah, I think Spider-Man 2 will launch higher than Ragnarok. Now, in terms of the mind share and market share between Spidey and Starfield, this is interesting because I think that they actually will be different. And let me explain that. I think in raw unit sales, I think there's a pretty good chance Spidey outsells Starfield. And that may sound surprising because if you look back at Skyrim sold a freaking ton. If you look at Fallout 4, it sold a freaking ton. It shipped 12 million units on day one for Fallout 4. That's a data point I keep seeing getting thrown around about Starfield. There's a couple reasons, though, guys, to not expect Starfield to launch anywhere near in size of sales of Fallout 4 in terms of sales. Okay, now just wait, Starfield fans. Just wait. There's a second part to this answer I'm about to give. I don't think that Starfield's sales numbers will look anything like Fallout 4. And that is because, A, Fallout 4 was fully multi-platform. This game was on PlayStation at launch. Starfield's not going to be. That will impact sales. That's just a fact, guys. If you're on less platforms, odds are you are going to sell less. Not always, but typically that is the rule of thumb. The second thing to note, Fallout 4 is another entry in a massive franchise, right? People loved Fallout 3. They loved Fallout New Vegas. They were games that sold a ton. Starfield's a brand new IP. This is the very first shot, and it is literally nothing like Fallout. So it's a completely new IP. That's another thing you have to consider. And the third thing you have to consider is this is launching day one on Game Pass. This is going to cannibalize sales. Microsoft themselves have even been honest now and said, yes, Game Pass cannibalizes sales. That's directly from Microsoft, guys, not from me, Microsoft's own wording. So you have three things here to factor in that, hey, more than likely, this isn't going to sell on the level of like what Fallout 4 did, at least at launch, right? Now, the things, though, that make Starfield advantageous, and one thing I think we might see happen, is that Starfield, I think, might have a higher player number. So keep your eyes on that. Now, I could see a scenario when sales charts come out, and you look at the numbers of sales, that Spider-Man is outselling Starfield. I'm not guaranteeing that for you guys, but I think there's a legitimate chance that that happens. However, on the flip side, when Microsoft comes out and gives total players, I could see a scenario where that's significantly higher. Look at how fast Halo Infinite hit 20 million players. Look at how fast Forza Horizon hit 20 million players. I mean, these games hit 20 million players very fast. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, if Starfield's quality is good, I think it will be bigger than Halo Infinite and bigger than Forza Horizon. That's right, I'm predicting this could be the biggest Xbox launch in all of history in terms of player counts, okay? So, mind share and market share could be two different things when these launch. It's going to be very, 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 very interesting because I'll be honest with you, as big as I think Spider-Man 2 is going to be, I'm not expecting this thing to sell 20 million units in a month. There's a real chance Starfield hits 20 million players in a month. I'm not kidding. Look at Halo Infinite. Look at Forza Horizon 5 and the numbers those did. Game Pass will have a higher subscription rate now than it did when those games launched. And I think Starfield on PC especially will be much bigger than Forza Horizon was and much bigger than Halo was. So we have a real scenario where Starfield hits 20 plus million players in a month. Very real scenario that happens. And I can't see Spider-Man, even as big as it's going to be, selling 20 million copies in a month. So I think that's honestly a very realistic scenario that Spider-Man 2 has more raw sales and Starfield has higher player counts. We'll just have to see. They're very different things because Starfield will have Game Pass, which makes it much, much easier to become a player than Spider-Man does. But it'll be fascinating to watch either way. Either way, both these games are going to be juggernauts. There's just no debate. Starfield's going to be huge. Spidey's going to be huge. But that's the scenario I see in my mind right now. And we'll have to see. I think we had a super chat hit. We did. Highlander 001 dropping a 5 super chat. Do you think Diablo 4 coming in June, and with Microsoft thinking the deal will close, could this is why they pushed Starfield to September? First of all, thank you, Highlander, for the super chat. No, so the reason that I had heard that there was a good chance that Starfield was getting delayed, which I hinted at last chat, was that it's really about polishing. As far as I understand, and this isn't like super insider info, be careful with this, guys. I always caution you guys that anytime I talk about this stuff, I do not consider myself some high tier insider or anything like that. But what I had heard is that like it's really not a content issue or anything at this point. It's really about polish. And I think they just want all the time possible to get this thing in the absolute best state they can at launch. I think Microsoft knows how massively important Starfield is. I've said this before. I think Starfield's the most important Xbox game since Halo 3. That's what I think. I think there has not been a single Xbox game that was more important for the platform since Halo 3. Halo 3 was an absolute juggernaut at the time. It was the game that really, like, when it hit 360 was like, this is the game that's like establishing Xbox 360. Yes, it didn't hit at launch, but it was like, it was the game that got people like super excited about Xbox 360, and it was a massive hit. I don't think any game since Halo 3 has been as important for the platform as Starfield. This is the first massive release from Bethesda since that acquisition happened in terms of like big giant. Yes, we had Hi-Fi Rush, but it's nothing like Starfield. This is the first massive exclusive to hit from like one of their, not just Bethesda, from like any of the studios they acquired, right? There have been some smaller releases. There's been nothing on the scale of Starfield from any of these studios that they went on this acquisition spree with, besides maybe Forza Horizon 5, but that was like, I know that Playground was a new acquisition technically, but they kind of didn't feel like it because they'd been making Xbox exclusives for so long and there've been so many Forza Horizon games. Like, this is the first big giant game from an Xbox studio that, hey, we bought, that's brand new IP. This is the direction of the future of Xbox. Like, I don't think there's been any game from any Xbox studio as important as Starfield since Halo 3. So I know the delay sucks, but if I was them, I would keep delaying this thing until you have it in amazing shape. Because this game's not just about being a sales success or Game Pass success, in my opinion. It's also a messaging. It's a very important messaging that, hey, this is the future of Xbox. These sorts of experiences are going to be coming to, console and PC or whatever, our ecosystem. So that is what I had heard. I don't think it has really much to do with Diablo, though I did hear that was a consideration. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but it was one thing that was like, yes, it was discussed. I don't think it really has to do with Diablo or the deal closing, though, because if so, they could have just done July or August. Going to September, like I said, the rumblings I had heard is this is really about getting this thing in an immaculate shape for launch. So we'll see. And then Highlander had a second super chat here. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Hey, Benji, hope you take time for yourself. What kind of legs do you think Starfield will have? Think it could be as big as Skyrim. Keep being great. Well, thank you so much. My mental health is real up and down right now. It's like a yo-yo. I had 2 amazing days just a couple days ago, and then yesterday was like a pretty freaking rough one again, and then today's been amazing so far. So, the current mental health battle struggles I'm in are literally like a yo-yo right now. It's real up or down, crazy mood swings and all that sort of stuff. It'll go away. I always get through these episodes when they happen, but right now I'm just taking it day by day, man, because it's such a... I don't even know. Every day is something new in terms of being a great day or a horrible day. Now, what kind of legs do I think Starfield's going to have? Good. As long as this game's good, I don't see any scenario where it doesn't lag like Skyrim did, Fallout did, etc. Because the reason people love Bethesda games is because they're these types of games that they can play for years on end. Guys, I know people, and I'm sure you guys do too. You guys probably can vouch for this yourselves. I know people that played Skyrim back at launch, and they still play Skyrim, right? I'm not saying it's like an everyday thing, but it's a game they just keep going back to. Same thing with Fallout 4. I know people that played Fallout 4 at launch, and they'll still go back to Fallout. Like, the way Bethesda designs their games, they're super long, of course, but it's not just about the length of Bethesda's RPGs, it's also about the openness of it. You can really tackle their games however you want, in like what sort of order you want. You can just not even do the main quests in their games, right? You can get dropped in their world and just do whatever the freaking heck you want. You can just roam around and explore, and that's one of the things that people just really love about Bethesda games, I think, is that they truly are RPGs where you feel like you're telling your own story. You know, we had that question last week where someone asked me, how do you define an RPG? And one thing that really makes Bethesda games stand out from some other RPGs that I love Final Fantasy. When I play Final Fantasy, I don't feel like I'm telling my own story when I play Final Fantasy. I feel like I'm playing, you know, that character's story, which is great. Love games like that. But one thing that's interesting about Bethesda games is I don't feel like I'm playing as, you know, X character. I feel like it's my story. I'm going through my own story. And that's one thing people just love about them. So as long as Starfield is good, as long as it's the quality that we expect, I don't see any reason why this doesn't behave like a Skyrim or a Fallout long term. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. So I would expect it to be very popular for many years to come, as long as it's good, right? It's what it all comes down to. It all comes down to if it's good or not. But if so, it should just keep being popular for years and years and years and years. We had a very great and generous super chat here. There's no comment on it yet, so I'm going to come back and see if Adam Key here, Adam CK100, I apologize if your actual question didn't get put in the chat, but there's a $20 super chat. That is incredibly generous, Adam C. Key. Thank you so much. If that's just for support, man, I appreciate it so much. That's incredibly generous of you. If you do have a question, I will make sure to get to it, man, but thank you so much. That is very, very kind of you for that super chat. $20 is incredibly generous. I really appreciate that. All right. Joe Secchi here saying, yo, Benji, what's up? No question this week. Just here to support the live chat while I try restoring my half-broken old Game Boy Advance SP. Can you believe it's a 20-year-old console already? Time is relentless. Yeah, absolutely, Joe Secchi. So first of all, thanks for just showing up and supporting the chat. You're here like every week in chat, Joe Secchi. I know me and a ton of people appreciate seeing you. You've always been an active member in the sales community for years. I really appreciate seeing you here, man. And yeah, it is crazy. You know, you're spot on that time is relentless. I sit here and I'm like, you know, I'm getting close to middle age here, and I have a daughter, and she's growing up. She's starting kindergarten this year. It's like, dude, what the heck? Like, where does the time go? You know, if you're young, if you're like a teenager, not you, Joe Secchi, maybe you are, I don't know how old you are, but in general, people always tell you, I remember how annoying that would be when I was like 18, 17, and people would tell you, man, it goes by so quick. And you would always be like, you know, it's whatever. No, it does. I'm telling you, you wake up one day and you're like, where did the last 20 years of my life go? It's crazy. So thanks, Joe Secchi. Cool that you're restoring your Game Boy Advance SP. Great console. One of the best shapes ever still for a handheld. I think it's one of the greatest designs ever for a handheld system in terms of just like the flip, and it's nice. Michael Yu, hey Benji, it's the Battle of the Goliaths this year. In terms of sales, which one will sell more? Zelda Tears of the Kingdom or Spider-Man 2? And since Starfield will be on Game Pass, let's use player count as the metric for Starfield. Where will Starfield rank in terms of player count among these three titles? This is going to be a hot take. I think Starfield ranks the highest of the three in player count. Yeah, that's right. I think more than Zelda. I don't think Zelda is going to do 20 million units in a month. Like, guys, I think it's like almost a lock that Starfield's going to do 20 million players in a month. What Halo Infinite hit 20 million players in less than a month, didn't it? And I see no reason at all this is going to hit less. I see zero reason why this would hit less players. And people will say, well, Halo was free to play. Guys, Game Pass has over 30 million subs at this point, or close to it by itself. In fact, I think it will be over 30 million by then. I expect an extremely high percentage of Game Pass members to play this game, and it's also going to sell buttload on PC. I just don't see how this doesn't hit 20 million players in a month. So they announced that on January 26th for Halo, and Halo released, it was December. Technically, though, November. Technically November for the multiplayer portion. Yeah, I mean, I'm still sticking with it. I think Starfield hits 20 million players in a month. So, and I don't think Zelda does that, and I don't think that Spider-Man does that. So, if we're going to be honest here in terms of raw player count, and again, it's a weird comparison because Game Pass. If this wasn't available on Game Pass, I would probably have a different tune. I would still think it would be huge, but if we were just talking raw sales, I would actually predict probably that Zelda would go number one. But since Game Pass goes in there, that literally changes the equation. So I'll say Starfield the highest on player count. In terms of sales, Zelda will sell more than Spider-Man 2, especially if you're talking for the calendar year, because Zelda is going to have way more lead-in time. What's Breath of the Wild's total sales numbers at now? Did that get past 30 million? And people are going to be like, Benji, you're a sales guy. You should know this off the top of your head. Bro, you know how many numbers I try to remember every day? It's freaking hard, okay? To remember everything off the top of your head. I know it got close, but I can't remember if it hit over 30. I want to say it's just under. I want to say it's just under 30. I was right. It is. So I was close. 29 million units for Breath of the Wild. So again, 20 million in a month is very unlikely for... and I know people are going to be like, well, look at Pokemon. Again, Pokemon was during the holidays, guys. I don't know that Zelda's going to perform like Pokemon. It might. I could be totally wrong here. I mean, Pokemon hit 20 million shipped in a quarter, though. But that was basically a month, right? Wasn't it 6 weeks? Something like that. So... it could be close. It could get close. It'll be interesting. I will say that I would predict both Zelda and Starfield in player counts to be higher than Spidey. Yeah, both of them. I think I would put both Zelda and both Starfield higher on player count. Sales numbers, I'm thinking it goes Zelda, Spidey, Starfield. Player counts, I would go Starfield and Zelda are real close there. And Spidey below that. I think we had a super chat. Oh, no, that's still the same one. Thanks for over 100 a bunch again today in chat, guys. It's so awesome seeing the chat's growing. I love it. It's been awesome. The support lately has been amazing. I so appreciate it, guys. Hammersley Ford. Hello, Benji. Hope you're doing great. I was saying that Starfield will get delayed a second time because of how little marketing it got. I'm happy I was right, but also sad it got delayed. The game looks great, though. Improved a lot compared to summer 2022. Yeah, the new footage looks awesome. Now, we only got tiny clips, but I thought what they showed looked awesome. The comparisons I keep seeing people put out there is that they're getting Interstellar Nolan vibes, and I totally agree with that. That is totally the aesthetic this thing has. It is a very Christopher Nolan Interstellar vibes. I sent out a tweet like this. I love astronomy, space, the cosmos. I listen to podcasts about it quite literally every day. For anyone that's interested in space and science and things like that, a couple YouTube recommendations I have for you. John Michael Gaudier. He has an amazing YouTube channel that's awesome. He has a second channel called Event Horizon, which is incredible. It's basically like a weekly podcast on his Event Horizon channel where he talks to NASA scientists. He talks to, just all across the board, incredible minds in space and astronomy. So, but his individual channel is just him uploading interesting things. So John Michael Gaudier, Event Horizon, PBS Space Time is an excellent one, especially diving into the physics of space. So PBS Space Time is another one I'd recommend you. And then another one I would recommend would be Isaac Arthur. He has a great channel all about space science. He kind of is more of a futurist in a way. A lot of his video content is about the future of space travel and stuff, but it's all based in hard science. So that's a few off the top of my head I would totally recommend. Event Horizon, John Michael Gaudier, Isaac Arthur, and PBS Space Time. And SEA is another great one. SEA is another very, very good one. So, yeah, I'm hyped for Starfield. I'm literally a 10 out of 10 hype. The delay sucks. The little bit of footage we saw looked great in this trailer, I thought. The aesthetic is amazing for anyone that's... It's definitely sci-fi, but it's a much more grounded take on sci-fi than we usually see in video games, right? Usually they're these real, almost bordering on fantasy space games, right? Look at Destiny. It's not remotely realistic. Love it, but it's not remotely realistic. Look at Mass Effect. I love it. Again, not even remotely grounded feeling. It's like a space opera feel, which is incredible. But like, we don't have many games like this where yes, it's sci-fi, but the presentation is very much so like, this is kind of what it would feel like if you jumped forward 100 years in time or whatever, right? Like what it might really be like, and presenting these planets how they probably really mostly look in space. Most planets in space, we pretty much have enough information now, don't look anything like Earth. There might be some planets out there that look like Earth. In fact, I'm sure there are. But most planets are probably going to look like Venus. They're probably going to look like Mercury. They're probably going to look like Jupiter, right? Most planets, we don't have any evidence are going to look remotely like these, flourishing, amazing, hospitable to life planets. They're going to be pretty barren and chunks of rock in space. So I find that fascinating, and it looks great. We had a super chat here. Oni X with a $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Oni. How about Starfield on Steam player count 1 million? This is fascinating. Because I talked about this last chat, and I was like, guys, I expect this thing to be huge on PC, but you need to be very careful about looking at that Steam number and thinking that's how many people are actually playing this game on PC. Same thing for Hi-Fi Rush, right? Like, any game that's a first-party Xbox game launching day one on Game Pass, Microsoft themselves have said that PC Game Pass is actually the highest growth in subscribers than console. That's right. More people right now in growth. They didn't say total subscribers, but in terms of growth, PC Game Pass is growing faster than Xbox Game Pass, which makes sense because PC has a way higher install base, right? If you look at how many available game players there are on PC, and you look at how many people there are with an Xbox Series S or X console, it's a massive gap, right? There's just way more people on PC. So it makes sense that PC would have a higher growth rate. There is no doubt in my mind that Starfield's going to be a massive hit on Steam. There's just no doubt in my mind. This thing is definitely going to sell a ton. A ton of people are going to play it on Steam because they love Steam as a launcher. But it's also not going to remotely reflect total player counts because there's going to be millions of people out there subscribed to PC Game Pass. And they're going to be playing it through Game Pass because that's why they have the subscription. So it will be fascinating. I would say, honestly, if this wasn't on Game Pass, I think there's a very real chance it might do 1 million on PC, on Steam. But with Game Pass, it might be very hard. Here's what I'll tell you, Oni X. If this thing hits 1 million concurrent players on Steam, guys, that means we're about to see like ridiculous records getting shattered by this game because, again, that's not even going to remotely represent the total PC player base. There's also going to be a massive, that 1 million on Steam would mean like significantly higher overall player count because Game Pass is going to be a huge chunk as well. Keep in mind, Cyberpunk is like the only single player game ever to hit 1 million concurrent. Elden Ring didn't do it. It got really close, but it didn't happen. Hogwarts Legacy didn't do it. It got very close, but it didn't happen. Look at how many units Cyberpunk sold, and that was like the only one that hit 1 million on Steam. So if Starfield does it, holy mother of God, this thing is selling an unbelievable amount of units and an unbelievable amount of players because that's not even close to representing everybody because there's a ton on Game Pass too. So right now, Oni X, I'm going to hold off on that 1 million. Again, if there wasn't a Game Pass version, I think there's a real chance it could happen. But with Game Pass, I just think it'll cannibalize enough. Right now, the over-under in my mind is 500,000. Because again, that's not everyone. So the over-under for me is 500,000 on Steam. How much did Fallout 4 hit? I want to say like 600,000. Let me see. I want to say around 600K for Fallout 4's all-time peak on Steam. Let's see if I'm right. Let's see if I'm right. Okay, lower actually, 472. So again, like I said, Steam or Fallout 4's all-time peak is 472. Now the argument you can make is, hey, but Steam has a much higher player base now than it did, how many years ago was that now? 7 years ago. And you're absolutely right. That's why I think if there was no Game Pass version, this would be in play. But with Game Pass, it's like, so for me, the over-under is 500,000. If this thing does even 500,000 on Steam, I would be very, very willing to say this is doing over 1 million concurrent combined between Game Pass and Steam, because I could easily Steam being only 50% of how many people are actually playing this game on PC. I think there's a very good chance of that. So if this hits 500,000, I would consider that a massive success for Starfield, because I think total players would be over 1 million then. So that's the over-under in my mind. That's what I'd be looking at if I was you. I'd be like, can this thing do 500,000 or more? Because that would still be above Fallout 4. George Corona III with a 10 super chat. We have several super chats here pouring in. Thank you, guys. George Corona III with a 10. Let me take a sip of my coffee here. I'm loving how much more traction these chats are getting, guys. I really appreciate it. Saw somewhere that Sony, and this is a $10 super chat from George Corona. Thank you, very generous. Saw someone say that Sony has $5+ billion left for acquisitions. What should they do, and what do you think they might do? Is that figure for the rest of the year? When does it reset or increase? I want to say that that's, I think it's past this year, but I think it's maybe like the next 2 years. Let me double check on this for you, because that is accurate. It is accurate, the 5 billion number. But I can't remember when the cutoff date for that is. Yeah, until 2024. So, yeah, that's until 2024 is when they have it for. Now, keep in mind, that's for Sony in general. That is not all PlayStation money, okay? That is for Sony. That's Sony's investment budget. So be very careful on thinking that that's just like, that means Sony's going to drop $5 billion on the video game portion of their company. No, Sony has a lot of businesses, guys. They have video games, which is a massive part of their business. Massive. The PlayStation brand is so important to Sony. But they also have Sony Pictures. They also have Sony Music. They also do a bunch of stuff in anime, which is part of Pictures, I know, basically at this point. But it's also, they have huge investments in Crunchyroll and Funimation. And, they have a ton of stuff. Sony's a big giant. They do TVs. They do technology. So it's just $5 billion in general for the whole company. Don't think that means Sony's going to come out and drop $5 billion on strictly PlayStation. They might, but they could also spend that in other places as well to shore up and give strength to other portions of their business. That's what I would expect. I'd expect some of this to definitely go to gaming and some of it to go to Sony Pictures. So there are rumblings that they're trying to sell Sony Pictures. I can tell you that is a very real rumor. It's not one of those things where I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it is. It is a real, very real thing. Whether they will sell it or not, I don't know. But Sony has explored the idea of selling off Sony Pictures, which is fascinating because it's such a big part of their business. But in the end, I don't think they're going to sell Sony Pictures, but it's something they've explored. Now, what do I think that they'll do with that money on the gaming side? I've said for a while I expect Sony to make a purchase bigger than Bungie before this is all said and done. Right now, Bungie's their biggest gaming acquisition. I expect they will make one bigger even than Bungie at some point in the next couple years. But what I have also said is I think Sony is very afraid to do that right now with what's currently happening with the Activision Blizzard deal. So what I would say, George, is I think that they're not going to make any major purchase until they get a definitive answer one way or another on what's happening with Activision. Because, again, it's going to become a huge issue for them in this court battle if they're literally talking about how Microsoft's the big bad in the industry and buying everyone up and we literally can't compete. If right as they're saying that, they also announce we're buying Square Enix, right? It just wouldn't work, okay? It would destroy their argument. And now I know people would say, hey, Square Enix isn't near as big as Activision Blizzard, and you would be absolutely correct. But it would also be just a massive red flag for their argument because it would still be a massive purchase, right? It's not going to be as big as Activision Blizzard, but it's still friggin' huge. So it goes directly in the face of their argument that we just can't compete, because that's what they keep saying. We just can't compete. If Microsoft does this, like, how's Sony going to survive? Like, so what I've always said, I think they are going to make a purchase bigger than Bungie before this is all said and done, but I don't think they'll pull that trigger until they know one way or another how Activision Blizzard goes. So we'll have to see. I won't be surprised at all, George Corona, if they make some smaller tier purchases still, like they've already done during this whole thing, right? They bought Housemarque and Bluepoint, I think, both after it was announced, and even Bungie, I think, was after it was announced. But don't expect something too crazy until they get an answer one way or another on this. Who those studios could be, I don't know. I've said a bunch of times, if I was them, I would buy Ember Lab, who made Kena. I would make Kena 2 with a bigger budget. I think that because you could get Ember Lab for cheap. But again, I don't know that Ember Lab wants to be bought, but if they do, I would do that. I would buy Square Enix if I was them, to be honest with you, if they could get them. And I know people will make the argument that Square Enix does a ton of stuff that, isn't about video games, right? Tons of merchandising and things like that. But I would still do it. Honestly, if I was them, I would buy Square Enix. But I don't know that they will. And I don't even know if Square Enix would be willing to sell. But I don't expect that, but we'll see. But I do think they'll get something bigger than Bungie in the next 12 to 24 months, is what I'd say. Benji with the super chat here with a 5. Hi, Benji. Pretty impressed by the PS5 sales lately, and it's great to see you, Benji. This doesn't seem to be related to Hogwarts only, right? So what is the main driver? It's availability. PS5, I've told you guys this for weeks. I work retail. The inventory levels for PlayStation 5 are like nothing I've seen since launch, which is making me very interested to see if they can really hit this 6 million number. I was pretty doubtful about it, but guys, the way they're shipping right now is absolutely insane. It is not small shipments. They are shipping massive batches of PlayStation 5s now consistently. It used to be like, hey, you would see like one big batch of PS5s maybe a month, and then you might get like a couple more stragglers in. This, it's like every week. They're just shipping massive PlayStation 5 shipments, and those are selling. So there's no doubt that Hogwarts drove console sales. There's just no doubt. It being current gen only, it's the only way to play the game, and this thing sold 12 million units in 2 weeks. Anytime you have a game that big that's only available for a certain platform, right, current gen only right now, that's gonna move hardware. So Hogwarts definitely had an impact, but I would agree with you, the main driver is just availability. This thing, they're shipping like freaking crazy. So it'll be interesting to see if they maintain it, but yeah, that's the main thing. Sorry, my eye is itching like crazy. I gotta stop touching it. I have insane allergies right now, guys. So if you start seeing me getting super red-eyed and sneezy soon, that's what's happening. My allergies have been destroying me. I have seasonal allergies, and they've been crushing me the last, week. MD with a 2 super chats. Thank you so much, MD. Benji, you are an inspiration to many. Keep going. Well, MD, you always have the best, most encouraging comments in these, man. I appreciate it so much. I cannot express the amount of kind messages and comments that I got during this recent run of mental health battles. I can tell you guys, I appreciate them so much. Of course, I get jerks sometimes on Twitter and on YouTube comments or whatever, being mean to me. I've told you guys before, I accepted a long time ago, you got to harden your heart and you got to get thick skin if you want to be a public person, right? I saw someone recently on Install Base. They tagged me in a post and they were like, hey, I was defending Benji on this forum because people were being mean. Apparently, I didn't see the comments, but apparently people were being mean to me there. And I was like, I appreciate it. I'm always going to appreciate people defending me, but I'll be honest, you can't really hurt my feelings anymore, guys. I don't really care. I just instantly mute people. Instant. If I get a mean comment, it's just mute, and then I just never see your account again. So you can write mean comments if you want. That's totally fine. I'll never see you again. So it was something I had to learn. It comes with the territory. It's not easy. Whenever I very first started, I would get very offended by mean comments, and they would make me very sad. And now I just focus on the positive people like UMD and tons of other people that are always having tons of nice comments and encouragement. So I appreciate that so much, dude. It really does uplift me. So thank you, man. You rock. Benji here with another 5. Hi, Benji. In the UK, bundles had a huge impact on Forbidden West and Ragnarok sales. Should Microsoft consider bundling games to boost hardware sales? I mean, they are bundling Forza Horizon 5 right now. That is a current bundle that's going with Series X. Bundles are never a bad idea, really. Because, hey, you're just getting more people out there playing the game, and if it's a first-party game, it costs you nothing. Like, that's the real secret about bundles that people don't really think about. It costs you $0. $0. Like, for Sony to throw God of War Ragnarok or Horizon Forbidden West into a console bundle, it doesn't cost them a penny because they're the publisher of the game and the developer of the game. So they literally pay $0 to 0 people to bundle that game. Same thing for Xbox with Forza. So I would say that bundling a first-party game is always never a bad idea because you're getting more value proposition into the bundle, and it also costs you nothing. So the one counter argument you could make about that is that, hey, yeah, but you're giving away a game maybe someone would have bought later. Well, right now, Sony is pricing like the God of War bundle higher than normal. At least in the US, that thing is $559 instead of $499, and Microsoft's doing the same thing with the Forza bundle. So it's not full price, right? Like you technically save $10 if you buy the PS5 bundle, then buying God of War Ragnarok on PS5 for $70 and then the console. So yeah, maybe they're losing a tiny bit of revenue off of like Ragnarok specific sales, but overall they're not losing anything on it. Same thing with Xbox and Forza. So Benji, I think it's never a bad idea. Third-party bundles are a little bit more questionable because you have to pay for that, right? Like you're not just going to say, like, let's just pick a random game. Jedi Survivor. There's a new Xbox Jedi Survivor bundle. That wasn't free. They had to pay EA a freaking ton of money to put Jedi Survivor in the bundle. And I know there is no bundle, guys. This is a hypothetical. So third-party bundles, I don't actually think those are the best idea unless it's part of some overall huge marketing deal. But first-party games, yeah, sure, bundle them. Might as well. It's not going to cost you anything. And you get more people to try the franchise. And maybe make the console a little more attractive to buy. All right, super chats are cleared. Thanks so much, guys. How long have we been going? All right, I have 15 or 20 minutes. I have a hard out today because I have work. I'm not done, but we're looking at about the last 15 to 20 minutes here of chat because I have to go to work today. El Greco 17. I am so excited to play Starfield. It looks so immersive. I will be taking my time so much, taking every planet and landscape. El Greco, I'm the same exact as you. I played a absolute ton of Skyrim. I played a ton of Oblivion. I played a ton of Fallout 3. I played a ton of Fallout 4. Like I love Bethesda's like main flagship RPGs. I just absolutely love their games. And I'm also a space, astronomy, cosmos, like fanatic. So this is literally a match made in heaven for me. If it's anywhere near as good as I think it will be, combining realistic sci-fi RPG with Bethesda's formula, El Greco, I'm the same exact way as you. I'll be playing this game a ridiculous amount for many years to come. Couldn't agree more. Johnny G22, what's good, Benji? Do you believe Starfield is going to release September, or it gets another delay, possibly for the holidays? Johnny G, I think this is the real date because, like I said, I heard this is basically about polish. And polish isn't just bug fixing. You guys hear sometimes when we hear polish, we think, oh, they're just fixing the bugs. I just mean an overall level of polish is what I've heard, whether that's gameplay, visuals, frame rates, bug fixing, all of it. It's not so much a content thing from what I have heard. I have heard it's really about polish. They want this thing in immaculate shape for launch. We'll see, but I would be more concerned if there was like major overhauls they were still doing to the game. From what I understand, that is not the case. The content is there. It's just about getting everything just immaculately clean and ready to go. Timcott. Hey, Benji. Greetings from Poland. Greetings to you in Poland. I love seeing people from all over the world in chat. I love it. With Starfield launching in September, do you think Forza Motorsport will launch in October or sometime before Starfield? I'm still expecting Forza before Starfield, so I'm going to guess that's July or August, but I have no inside information on this. But that would be my guess. We know it's not in that first 6 months now. They basically confirmed that whenever they did the last developer direct. But I still think that hits before Starfield. So that would be my guess. My guess is that Forza's July or August. That'd be a great August game. If you could put it in early August, I think that would be a great spot for it, to be honest with you. That's where I would put it. August is usually not a super competitive month. That would give it a month before Starfield if you did early August. That's the window I would put it at. But we'll see. My guess, though, is still before Starfield. Diagazo, hey Benji, hope you're doing great. PS5's had a big resurgence in Japan. It's even outpacing PS4. With these conditions, how well do you think Final Fantasy 16 can do over there? Can it match the launch of 15? So Diagazo, as amazing as PlayStation 5's increases are across the board right now, like I said, I wrote a tweet about it. It's one of the headlining things here. Whether you look at the UK, whether you look at Europe, whether you look at Japan, whether you look at US, which we'll eventually have data for, but NPD is so unbelievably slow that we still don't have US NPD data. But I can tell you right now it's massively up. Across the board, it's surging. One interesting thing, though, about Japan that is different than UK, Europe, and US is they're still having a brutally bad scalping situation in Japan. That's really not the case in the rest of the world anymore. Not to say there's no scalpers, but it's not like it was, like, let's say, a year ago or a year and a half ago. Like, it's much more calmed down, the scalping situation. But that has not happened in Japan. It's still a massive, massive issue there. And some of these are being sent to places like China, for example. There's a lot of importing from China happening with these Japanese PlayStation 5s. So I'm not one of those people that's going to tell you, like, oh, PlayStation 5, like, none of these are going to Japanese consumers. Because, you know, I know there is some arguments about that. There's definitely people in Japan getting PS5s, but it is significantly more of a problem than it is in the West. So we'll have to see on 16. Do I expect it to launch as big as 15? No. Nope, I don't expect this to launch as big as 15. The quality to me seems tremendously high. I don't know if you guys read those new previews or saw the new gameplay footage, but I think this game looks incredible. I think it looks way better than 15. I liked 15, but 16 looks way better. So I won't be surprised, to be honest with you, Diagazo, if 16 outsells 15 long term. That wouldn't shock me at all. But at launch, I don't think it'll match 15 in Japan because I think that the scalping situation is still too bad for install base overall to match those sort of numbers. 15 had a massive launch. So I'm going to say no at launch, but it might out long term. It might outsell it, you know, over the course of time. That could happen. Cameron Swear, Metroid Prime Remastered seems to be tracking very high in the US on the Amazon charts for 2023. I wasn't expecting a lot from the physical sales. Thoughts on a number for the title when Nintendo reports? Yeah, I would say Metroid Prime Remastered seems to be clearly overperforming. I don't think Nintendo remotely expected this. And you can tell that by like how delayed all the shipments are for this game. Like, it's a big problem. There's people that still can't get a hold of this game physically. I don't think Nintendo remotely anticipated this level of attention. This is great news, by the way, for Metroid Prime 4. If I was them, I would absolutely make sure you have Metroid Prime 2 and 3 out the door before Prime 4 hits to get people caught up. Because clearly, the way Prime Remastered is performing, I think there is a ton of people, myself included, that never played that original game that are now playing this for the first time. Now, obviously, I don't expect like a level of remaster like 1 had here for 2 and 3, because the rumblings are is that the 2 and 3 are coming, but they're not like at this level. They are maybe like up-resed and stuff, but I haven't played it yet, guys, but what I've heard is that Metroid Prime 1 Remaster is actually closer to a remake than a remaster. It sounds like 2 and 3 might actually just be more like legitimate remasters. Either way, Nintendo is out of their minds if they don't put those on the Switch before 4 hits. They got to do that. They got to get 2 and 3 out the door before Prime 4 comes so people can be fully caught up, because 2 and 3 are also going to sell a ton with the way Prime 1 is performing. So we'll see. Like, thoughts on the total number, that's so freaking hard to say because this had a staggered launch and a weird physical release. You know, we have no idea how this thing performed digitally other than, I'm sure, extremely well. And then the physical launch is like chaos, like with delayed shipments and running out of inventory. So I'll be honest, Cameron, I can't predict for you here an actual number, but I will say it's way overperforming. Way overperforming. JCat in the chat. What is up, JCat? Thank you, JCat, for always being here and helping mod the channel. I appreciate you so much and everything you do for this channel, JCat. Jared said Starfield looks great. I agree 100%. New footage looks awesome. We didn't see much, but it looks great. Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, I agree with JCat here. JCat says PS5 software sales remain abysmal in Japan despite the hardware sales increase dramatically. Pre-orders for 16 are about 80% lower than 15. 16 will not be able to match 15. JCat, I agree. I just can't see the launch matching it. Again, the scalping situation is real in Japan, guys. Like, it's a real thing. A lot of these consoles, again, not all of them, but there are a bunch of consoles getting like sold to China and stuff. So it is a problem. 16 looks so good, though, that, like I said, we'll see. We'll see about long-term sales. DB will rise. Benji, with all the recent PS5 sales updates, are you changing your stance on Sony reaching their 6.2 million forecast? Why or why not? I am still of the opinion, I will say I'm a lot more locked into 5+ million than I was before. Before I was saying like 4 to 5 million, which would still be utterly gigantic. Now I'm like much more like, I think they can do 5 million plus, which is still insane, guys. I'm going to hold off on 6.2 still. I'm not telling you that's impossible. Literally the only reason why I'm not saying 6.2 is in the bag is because that number is so ridiculous. It is the biggest Q1 shipment for any console of all time. Anytime we start talking about all-time records, I get a bit nervous. You know what I mean? Anytime you start like predicting an all-time record, whether that's for hardware, software, whatever, I'm a little nervous to commit to that just because now you're talking craziness, right? And I do sometimes, right? There are times that I take that stance on a game or whatever. I think there's going to be the biggest X game ever. That dude, 6.2 in Q1 is so crazy. So DB will rise. Here's what I'll say. I do predict now, I do think they will definitely hit 5 million plus, which is still insane. It's still an absolutely insane number. I'm still not going to commit to 6.2, but it's really just me being a coward. Instead of me being like, there's just no way, I logically know this won't happen. It's more me just being like, bro, 6.2 million consoles is so much. It is scary to commit to that. So that's what I'll say. If they do it, though, holy mother of God, you got to give Sony their flowers if they do. If they actually ship 6.2 million consoles this quarter, I don't care if you're a PlayStation fan, I don't care if you're a Nintendo fan, I don't care if you're an Xbox fan or a PC fan, you got to give Sony their flowers. That number is insane. Like, we're just going to have to be like, Sony, dude, wow, you guys literally just set the all-time record. Congratulations, because it'll be insane. Split at 89. Benji looks great in 1080p 60 FPS. Well, I don't know about that. That's a very kind compliment, Split End. Thank you, buddy. But I'm sure I look very rough right now. Like I said, I am battling allergies. Like, my eyes are all red and itchy. My face is like, complexion's not great. You know, the allergies are rough. But I appreciate it, buddy. Sam. Hey Benji, do you believe Starfield will be 30 FPS on Xbox? If so, do you believe there will be a big backlash? Sam, the thing I've been predicting is that Starfield will be 30 FPS only on console. The main reason I've been predicting that is because it looks so ridiculously ambitious in terms of scope. I think that may be a challenge to hit 60. And I don't know if you guys noticed, that new trailer, the assets look very high quality. They do. Again, you're going to have some people be like, I'm sure, say like, this doesn't look anywhere near as good as Horizon Forbidden West or whatever, and that has a 60 FPS mode. And you could be right. I'm not saying this looks better than Horizon, but you have to remember Bethesda games are far more interactive than the world of Horizon. Far more. And I love Horizon Forbidden West, but the level of interactivity with the environment is night and day. There's just way more interactivity with Bethesda's worlds than what Horizon has, and that is going to drain resources on CPU, GPU, all of it. So that to me is the worry. The assets look awfully high for a game of this scope. That new footage, like if you look at the textures, if you look at everything, the lighting, I think it looks very, very good for a game this size. Significant jump over previous Bethesda games. I'll love it. Guys, I'm rooting for a 60 FPS version, but I'll just say I won't be shocked at all if this is 30 FPS only. The backlash is pretty much amongst only the hardcores, guys. We've talked about this before. That doesn't mean that, there aren't people that, even casuals who really want 60 FPS games on console. Absolutely there are. But the obsession over frame rate is very much a hardcore thing. It's not so much a thing you see bleed over into just your average gamer who isn't on forums or Twitter all day. They just kind of buy games and play them or whatever every once in a while. Those people aren't obsessing over frame rate. So again, I'm rooting for it. I really hope this game has a rock solid, awesome 60 FPS version at launch. I'm just saying, Sam, it won't shock me at all if this is 30 FPS only. 30 FPS only games don't bother me as long as they implement very good motion blur. So if this is going to be 30 FPS on console, it needs to have very, very good motion blur because that makes a huge difference in terms of how a game feels. I know some people don't like motion blur. I don't think it's necessarily super important at 60 FPS. At 30 FPS, though, I think you do need strong, in terms of quality, very good motion blur. It does help things at 30 FPS. Let me make sure there's no super chats as we wind down the chat. We're getting very close to the end. Very, very close to the end. Reverse World's coming in with a late super chat. A 2 here. Is Xbox's Activision Blizzard King confidence reflected in Starfield's date? No, Reverse World, you might have come late. My answer, someone asked this earlier. No, from what I understand, Starfield delay doesn't have anything to do with Activision Blizzard. It's about polish. I had heard recently that there was a good chance that this was getting pushed to second half. So, and the reason that was stated to me was polish. Again, I don't know. Again, be very careful. I never say I'm a top tier insider. That's not how I've built my brand or what I do. But I had heard recently this is probably slipping to second half, and the main thing I had heard is it's about polish. When I say recently, I mean I literally heard this in the last week. So, we'll see. But I don't think it has anything to do with Activision Blizzard. I could be wrong. Phil himself did not tell me this. It's not like Phil Spencer DM'd me and he was like, hey, Benji, by the way, Starfield's delayed and it's because we're going to get Activision, That didn't happen. I'd love for Phil to DM me this sort of info. But I had heard recently, as in the last week, this thing's getting pushed to the second half probably, and it's because polish. Brian the Savior, Benji, do you think people are being too bullish on Nintendo Switch this year? Absolutely. I've been telling you guys that. Switch is declining hard. Even with Zelda and a possible revision, there's still going to be 20 to 30% declines. My expectations for 2023 is 13 to 15 million. I don't know if I go that low on Switch shipments, but I am absolutely with you, Brian. Yes, people are being way too bullish on Switch. And it's because Switch has had such a strong performance overall. The problem for Switch is that it's just running into a saturation wall. That is literally the problem. It's hitting a saturation wall. Now, it doesn't mean there's still not millions and millions of consoles left in the tank. So, guys, when we say that, Switch is slowing down, some people take that as doom and gloom, and they're like, the sky's falling, and, Benji's out here saying that Nintendo's doomed, and they're going to sell 1 million consoles for the year. That's not what I'm saying, guys. But, anyone thinking that this thing is going to be flat or up this year, and this goes to Nintendo themselves, I'm telling Nintendo this themselves, you're wrong. That's not going to happen. You know, again, I could be wrong in the end, but I see no piece of evidence that would reflect to that. This thing is falling fairly sharply in several markets. UK is down almost 30%. Europe's down almost 30%. It's declining in Japan as well. It's still going to sell a lot. Keep that in mind, guys. I'm not telling you Switch is bombing and it's doomed, but it's declining and it's really hitting the end of its life. It really is hitting the end of its life. So, yeah, anyone predicting flat or up year over year, I think you're making a big mistake, and I would tell Nintendo's president that to his face. Like, I have no problem doing that. If he was sitting across the room from me, I'd say, hey, man, I really respect how bullish you are, but I think you're wrong. So, you know, and it wouldn't be the first time. Companies over forecast all the time. So I would have no problem telling any CEO if I think they're making the wrong choice. I have no problem with that. John Scott, any estimate on Atomic Heart sales? I liked it a lot, but I got soft locked more than acceptable amount of times. Yeah, I still haven't started Atomic Heart, and that is because I have heard this thing is fairly glitchy still. I plan on playing Atomic Heart. I know there's a lot of controversy around it because of the developers being Russian. I personally still feel okay playing the game, but I understand people that don't. I'm not going to criticize anyone for skipping it for those reasons, just like I don't criticize anyone for skipping Hogwarts Legacy. I played Hogwarts Legacy, really enjoyed it. To me, I didn't feel like I was compromising any morals personally, even though I will just be honest with you guys. I'll be upfront. I disagree with J.K. Rowling, but I didn't view... This is a personal decision. I didn't view me playing Hogwarts Legacy as me also agreeing with J.K. Rowling. I would say the same thing for Atomic Heart, but I also fully understand that that's going to massively vary on an individual basis. But what I have seen is very strong evidence this thing's doing great on Game Pass. I mean, this has been out now for a little bit, and listen to these Game Pass rankings, guys. It's holding well for a single-player game. Very well. I'm impressed at its holds on Game Pass. Let's see. This has been out for a while, and it is still top 5 on console. It's still top 5. And when I say a while, like, you know, it hasn't been out for months, but single-player games, a lot of times you see them on Game Pass, you know, spike pretty high for a couple days, and then they fall off, like, pretty hard. We've talked about this on the chat a lot. A lot of these games that consistently rank high on Game Pass are these big multiplayer games. It's still top 5 on console right now, and it's also, let's look at PC. It's still top 4 on PC. So for a single-player game, Atomic Heart's holding very well. So raw sales, I'm not so sure for you on, John Scott. I would say I haven't seen a ton of evidence this thing sold a ton outside of Steam. If you look at like the European charts, the UK charts, it didn't really rank high on sales, but I think players is very strong. So I would say overall it looks to be doing well. That's what I would say, if you factor in Game Pass. Wrapping this thing up. God, I love these chats. I don't want to stop. I got to go to work, and I'm like, I don't want to stop because I have so much fun doing these. I love these chats, guys. I hope you do too. Literally love them. Danger Man. Benji. Hey, Benji. I think it could have released half 1, but they wanted some more polish to be sure. Plus, releasing mid-May to late June was always way too difficult. Also wonder when Forza will come July. Yeah, Danger Man, that's what I was saying. I think Forza's summer, July or August, and yeah, that's what I've heard as well. That's what I've heard as well. The main reason for delay is polish. John Scott, is Metroid Prime going to sell over 3 million? I just have no idea. Like I said, it's hard for me to give a number estimate on that. Big Fresh 37, who's looking forward to buggy Call of Duty on PS5. For anyone that missed this, Sony made an insane argument, by the way, which they've done repeatedly, and so has Microsoft, so it's not just a Sony thing. we've talked about a lot on this chat over the last year, how Sony and Xbox keep making hilariously over-the-top claims. You know, Sony has said things such as, and these are real statements, guys. This isn't me like playing around. Sony's made real statements like, you know, we're doomed if Call of Duty doesn't come to, like, you know, if it doesn't stay independent, like we just can't compete and the whole PlayStation brand is going to fail essentially. We've seen Microsoft come out and make statements like, Call of Duty is not a big deal. What are you talking about? It's just this little shooter, which is real. They've way underplayed Call of Duty. They've been like, guys, I mean, yeah, it's a cool game, but it's not like it's that big. Like, you know, we've seen both these companies just make ridiculous claims to try and, you know, battle this, which makes sense, right? Like I've said before, I don't really fault either one of them. That's just what happens whenever you're trying to get your way. You're going to, you know, act a little ridiculous in court. The latest hilarious thing that Sony said is that Microsoft might purposely make Call of Duty glitchy on PlayStation. Come on now. Is Minecraft purposely glitchy on PlayStation or Switch? No. You know, this is a ridiculous claim. That's never going to happen. So, again, hilarious, but it's just another in a string of hilarious things that both these companies keep saying. Johannes, I'm really going to stop in 8 minutes, okay? I'm really stopping in 8 minutes. This is not a joke. I'm looking at the clock, 8 minutes, and I am leaving, okay? And then we're done. I'm just having too much fun to stop, so I'll push it a little bit. But that's it, 8 minutes. Johannes, there are also a lot of games out of their control. Way too many third-party studios. I'm not sure what you mean about that, Johannes. I'm just not sure. I'm not saying I disagree. I'm not sure what you mean. Oh, I didn't see this. B-Rex Media. Activision just added Modern Warfare 2019, Cold War, and Vanguard to Steam. Confusing, but welcomed. Yeah, exactly. That seems random, but yeah. Split End says, Jones may be an idiot, but he's one of the best fighters ever. A 3-year layoff and won that easily. I couldn't agree more. John Jones seems like a very bad person in real life. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm always cautious to judge people because I tell you guys all the time, I freaking mess up so much. I've done all sorts of stuff in my life where I look back on it and I'm like, God, I was an idiot when I did this. I was an idiot when I did that. I still mess up all the time. So if you guys follow me on Twitter, you guys know I'm not one of these holier-than-thou people that you see a lot, which is unfortunate. You see a lot of people on Twitter constantly criticizing others, acting like they're saints, and to me that's a huge red flag. I'm like, bro, if you're constantly criticizing someone else, I know for a fact you ain't no saint, so you might want to be a little careful with that, right? What skeletons do you got in your closet? But you guys know I don't take that stance. I don't hardly criticize anybody. But I will say John Jones has given us a lot of public evidence that's very, very open and clear that he ain't the best person. However, that doesn't, yeah, like you said, Split End, he is one of the best fighters ever that has ever lived in any combat sport. You want to talk about boxing, you want to talk about MMA, you want to talk about jiu-jitsu, I'm not saying he's the best boxer ever. I'm just saying if you want to look at best fighters ever, John Jones, there's no debate. He's one of the greatest of all time across all combat sports. Danger Man, I could see the rest of 2023 being Forza July, Starfield September, Avowed/Hellblade November. I agree with all this except for Avowed. I don't think Avowed is this year. I do not know that, but I don't think Avowed's this year. I think Hellblade might be, though. I could see Hellblade November and Avowed maybe sometime in the first half of next year. That's what I'm kind of thinking. JCat, almost anything you tweet is going to spark off a console war, Benji, let's face it. Yeah, it usually does. One thing that I'm very thankful for is that I have a ton of followers from all sides of the community. I have a lot of PlayStation fans that follow me. I have a lot of Xbox fans that follow me. I have I will say definitely less Nintendo fans than those two, and I think that's mostly down to people know that I just prefer PlayStation and Xbox over Nintendo. That doesn't mean I dislike Nintendo, by the way. Love Nintendo. There's all kinds of games from them I love. In fact, on my top 10 games of the year list, almost every year there's a Nintendo game in there, right? Kirby got in there last year for me. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. It was one of my 10 favorite games of the year. There's almost always a Nintendo game in my top 10. But overall, I place, Switch definitely the least of the three platforms. So my audience, I think, reflects that a bit. I would say I have more PlayStation and Xbox fans than Nintendo. But I am lucky in that I have people from all across the board that follow me. And so, of course, that means that they're going to be in the same spot. If I tweet something and they're going in the comments, the hardcore PlayStation fans and the hardcore Xbox fans are both going to be there. So they're going to go head to head. I appreciate the support from both sides of the aisle. Love you guys. But yeah, most of my tweets have a pretty heated console war in the replies. But it is what it is. As long as people aren't insulting me, I don't mind. It's just the personal insults. I very rarely block people. Really, the only way you'll ever get blocked by me is if you're personally insulting me. Not disagreeing, but like if you're just outright insulting me, yeah, you're probably going to get blocked. Baomangi, with Sony being told they have to turn over records of their exclusive deals since 2019, what kind of information would you be most interested in seeing in these records? For me, it would be the Square Enix deals if we could. The things I would be most interested in is Final Fantasy VII Remake and Forspoken. When did Remake release, though? The deal was made before then, but I wonder if they would have to still include... That was 2020, wasn't it? Wasn't it? Yeah, it launched in 2020. So I'm not sure if I think that would have to be included in the information presented to Microsoft because it's from 2019 on. And yes, the deal was struck before 2019, but the game released in 2020. So I would think that would still be part of it. If it is... that would be, if it ever goes public, those would be the two. Just because I'm very curious. I'm very curious what Sony's paying for these big AAA and 16. Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy 16 Forspoken. I would love to see the financials of that deal. Would love it. That would make me, as a sales guy, a data guy, a business guy, that would make me very happy to see those numbers. So, if I could see anything, that's what I would want to see. Fred, this is not true. 3 months won't make a difference for polishing, in my opinion. Well, Fred, as someone that knows tons of developers, when I say tons, I mean dozens and dozens and dozens from all across the industry, that ain't true. I know of massive, and when I say massive, 20 plus million selling unit games that came together in those last 2 to 3 months. I literally know them. I literally know the games. Not in terms of content, but in terms of like that final layer of polish. That comes in late, often. People do not understand how the states these games are in very close to launch. You guys really don't. And I'm not a developer, but from someone that talks to developers, dude, not all games. Some games are in a great state 8 months, 9 months, 10 months before launch, right? Sure, that does happen. There's exceptions to everything. A lot of these games, in terms of polish, that don't happen until the very end. In terms of getting to like a release level state, that comes very late, very often. Very often. So no, 3 months is a lot of extra polish, to be honest with you. A lot. In terms of when you're in pure finalized polishing state, you can get a lot done in 3 months. All right, I think I got to call it there, guys. I pushed it as long as I could. Let me make sure there's no super chats, and I got to go. There is. There's one last super chat, and then I have to leave. Johannes Castellanos with a 2 super chat. It was about the 12-month statement from Xbox E3. Oh, if you're talking about, yeah, I get what you're saying. In terms of the criticisms over the 12 months, whether you should, have a format like that or not. You're absolutely true And that's yet another reason to back up my statement. If I was Xbox, I wouldn't do this 12-month promise at E3 anymore because it's just way too volatile. The release slates are way too volatile. So you are spot on correct. Thank you for that super chat. Now, keep in mind, neither Forza or Starfield are third party. So those are two games that got delayed out of the window that they said that are first party. So they have a lot more control over that. But again, I'm not like hyper criticizing Microsoft over this. I'm not like saying you're a terrible company, you lied to us. It's more of one of those things, Johannes. I just wouldn't do that format because you're just playing with fire and you're asking people to get mad at you if for anything that slips, right? Because some people are. Some people are legitimately upset about Forza and Starfield. I'm not one of them. I say give these games as much time as possible, like to make sure they're good. But some people, are very upset about it. If I was Microsoft, there's an easy way to avoid this, and that's you don't make the promise. And they didn't say, hey, we pinky promise you that we're going to make this date, But a lot of people take it as a promise when you're standing on a stage and you say you're playing this in the next 12 months. A lot of people take that as a guarantee. Microsoft, do not do that. Release slates are way too volatile. I respect, the optimism. Just say coming soon. That's all you got to do. It does the same thing. You just come on the stage and you say, hey, this show, we're not showing you games that are years out. We're showing you games that, we're going to get these things to you as soon as possible. They'll be ready when they're ready, but we're really focusing on stuff that's going to be, pretty soon. It's not going to be stuff that's 3 years away. If that's what you want to do, do it. But you guys just be careful guaranteeing dates because, dude, we know how these releases go. All right, everyone, thank you so much. Thank you for an incredible turnout today. We were over 100 for almost the whole chat again. This is a recurring theme lately. It makes me so happy to see the growth of the chats. I absolutely love it. I appreciate all of you guys coming out today. I had a really fun time today. Pio's in chat. What is up, Pio White Wolf? Good friend of mine. Always bringing the hype. Always an awesome dude. Love the positivity about the PlayStation brand. Pio's the right kind of hardcore fan for me. Loves PlayStation, unapologetic about it, but I don't see him out there bashing Xbox. If you want to be a super fan, that's the kind of stance I love. I don't have any problem with people that love a single platform, but you don't have to console war of it. You can just love and be a fan of a platform. But all right, guys, I got to go. So subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We do one of these chats every week. They're growing. It's super awesome to see. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. I'm Benji-Sales on Twitter. That's where I'm the most active. That's where you're going to see me the most. Thanks for all the support. Thanks for the super chats. Thanks for the great questions. Love you guys. I'm going to head to work now. Stay safe. Play some games, and I'll see you either here on the chat next week if you only follow me here, or if you follow me on Twitter. I'm going to see y'all very, very soon. All right? Have a good one, guys. Thanks. Bye. Bye, 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 bye. Bye, 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 bye.